Once again, TNA delivers lots of things that other promotions have yet to do so this week. And 2/3 of the regular crew is back. No shade to Adolfo. I'm so happy Adolfo was here to review the saga that was the Matt Hardy comp. That was the best thing that happened last week. I don't care what nobody says. Whereas Crossway thinks that the learning tree in AEW is the so bad it's so good of the whole entire year. Nay, I say the Hardy Compound promo is my favorite thing of the year. But that was last week. We're here to cover this week's episode of TNA Wrestling that took place Thursday, June 20th, 2024. Welcome to another rendition of the Takedown Troop Review, your weekly TNA Wrestling, the OG TNA Wrestling Review. Don't let those other creators tell you otherwise. We've been here since the beginning, okay? No, seriously, we've been here since the beginning. It started as just me reviewing Impact, and then somehow I managed to convince Andrew and Will to join me, and here we are now. But I am your host, Mikey, also known as El Jefe around the BC WrestlePod parts, and joining me, welcoming him back from his vacation from last week, is my lovely co-host who joins me here and for ROH as well, Andrew, Mr. A to Z on the social medias. Andrew, thank you for being here. I missed you so much.
To be back in the world of TNA.
Exactly, because just when you thought it was like, oh, okay, I'm not going to miss too much, and then you jump right back in, and all the camp happens this episode too, which makes me super excited. Unfortunately, we are missing our Papa also Will. He will be here next week, though, now that he is almost done with his theater duties. Sunday is the last performance, and so then he will officially be back for the TNA reviews, which it will be nice to finally have my trio back together because we have yet to be in the same room for like a month, and it's sad. It's making me sad, but it's something to look forward to. But speaking of things looking forward to, this episode, as soon as I was done with the main event, I sat there and I realized, you done good, TNA. You done good. And you've actually started the groundwork for Slammiversary, your next pay-per-view, so we know a direction where you're headed with certain things. Unlike some other companies we just recently talked about this week, at least we have a direction for what your matches are going to be for your next PLE. But now that we've gotten all that out of the way, let's just jump straight in, because TNA kicks off with what seems to be a common trend after a big pay-per-view. We have the System in the ring cutting a promo. Poor Alicia, she was trying so hard and she couldn't get it through, so Eddie Edwards had to come on in and save it. But basically, this is the standard promo that we've been getting from the System since they've won all the titles, that, you know, we are the most dominant faction in TNA. We hold all the gold. Nobody can stop us. The only difference is that this time around, they were joined by Mr. Dango, also now going by JDC, Johnny Dango Curtis is the full name, so JDC is his whole name. Nice to see Dango back. Don't know why he had to insert himself in the match against all odds, but that's neither here nor there. But Dango cuts his promos to be like, I wanted to help the System. They're my friends. They're my family. Blah, blah, blah. Which then Moose cuts him off. It's like, hold up, Playboy. I appreciate what you did, but don't get it twisted. We didn't need your help, and you are not part of the System. But again, the System is continuing to dominate TNA. They hold pretty much all the gold right now. And then they're interrupted by my favorite authority figure on any promotion right now, our deputy of authority on TNA, Mr. Santino Morella. Santino basically tells JDC that he has a match with Hollywood hunk Ryan Nemeth later in the evening. But more importantly, Moose is kind of correct. He's pretty much gone through all the roster at this point, and really, there's no other person who can challenge Moose one-on-one. However, Santino got the bright idea that at Slammiversary, Moose will be defending his title in a 6-way elimination match, where the only way to win is you need to be it's basically last man standing, but you have to be the last person standing after all the eliminations happening. So over the next couple of weeks leading into Slammiversary, we're going to be getting some qualifier matches, and the winners of those matches will be inserted into the six-way elimination match for Moose's title at Slammiversary. And our first match is going to be happening tonight in the main event when Eric Young and Josh Alexander take on each other for the first spot. Immediately, Andrew, I already love the fact that we know what kind of match we're getting from Moose, and the fact that they took our critique, which is Moose has beaten almost pretty much everybody on the roster at this point. Now it's just like, hey, you've beaten everyone. Now time for the ghost to come and haunt you, because now pretty much it seems we might be putting everyone that Moose has had issues with over the last year, whether he's been champion or not, into this match. I'm kind of here for it.
Yeah, I mean, I like this promo was great. I like the system is playing into their style. I think JDC is a great fit for this. I think he's got the right ego and the right look for it. I like that we got to hear more of the history he has with some of the members of the system. I also think if they do want to bring him in and have him actually be a part of the system, I think he'd be a potentially good option to go after that digital media title if they want to try and keep them with all of the gold. But we'll see where all that kind of storyline is leading me, because I also had a bit of a Rick Rude joining DX feeling with JDC. So I was like, how soon are they going to turn on him? But we'll see what happens. I love the setup what Santino did with this. I think it's so good for building up for Slammiversary. I love the fact that we're going to use the next few weeks, basically like a month or so, to really build up who those contenders are going to be, because it just gives us a chance to build that storyline. So I'm excited. I love this whole opening segment. I thought it was a great way to get us excited going into this night.
Oh, absolutely. And then just the fact that we get free on television Eric Young versus Josh Alexander, I'm like, oh, this match is going to slap. I already know, because we know how good both Eric and Josh are. So to have them in the main event, super excited. And then it's not just one story, Andrew, that we know the direction for, one title that we know the story leading to Slammiversary. Because immediately afterwards, we got a second story, and we were pretty much without the confirmation. We get an answer to, what's the situation with the men's tag team championships? Well, we get this backstage promo from the ABC, who basically run down the fact that they've already had 2 successful title reigns and they're looking for a third one. So they're going to talk to Santino and they are going to enact their rematch clause, which I totally forgot. They still haven't enacted their rematch clause for those tag team titles. They're going to talk to Santino and see what they could do about having a championship match against the system, which tells me I was like, oh, this is definitely happening at Slammiversary. So it seems that once again, we got the second story, which is ABC are probably going to be challenging the system for those tag titles at Slammiversary. Will the ABC get a third title reign, or will the system continue to dominate? Right now, it's too early to call, and I like that I don't know who's walking out of that match with the titles, because I'm like, I'm 50-50 on this. This is how you get me invested.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I think I think we're seeing the re-solidification of ABC, which is great. It is kind of interesting, because now I'm asking myself, is Slammiversary when the system loses their titles? Because I feel like when they lose the titles, they're all losing the titles. And so, Moose being in a 6-way match, great way to have him lose those titles, especially if earlier in the night Militia loses the Knockouts titles, if the system loses the tag team titles, if we see fractures for him going into that main event, we could see them lose all those titles. So, or we could see them retain and move on and re-solidify themselves as the top in TNA. It's fun. It's exciting. This is what I want from storytelling.
Exactly. And my little writer brain is super happy with TNA. Not only because we could get consistent, good wrestling, but also their storylines. They're ridiculous, but at least there's a semblance of a story thread. And that's what I want. And then we get another third story confirmed, because we head into our first match of the evening, where we have Spitfire, which is Danny Luna and Jody Threat, taking on The Hex, which is Allison Kay and Marty Bell. I love that the Hex are in TNA. I'm happy because now we have that team in the Knockouts tag team division. And before we even talk about the match, commentary pretty much confirmed that also Spitfire has yet to cash in their rematch clause. So we probably are getting Spitfire versus Militia at Slammiversary 2, which actually I think would be a good time for Killer Kelly to make a re-debut at some capacity, because now, according to reports, she took some time off to go do some stuff, and now hopefully now I honestly think that Slammiversary is the perfect time to bring Killer Kelly and team her back up with Mosh and just have that disillusion of everything. As a sidebar, I saw a video of the entrance for both Mae Young Classics, and I forgot how many individuals across all the promotions were in that. And I forgot that Killer Kelly was a participant in the Mae Young Classic.
Yeah,
But that's
I,
besides the point. So let's get
I,
into this match. Oh,
I
go ahead,
think
Andrew. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say I think the return of Killer Kelly would make sense, especially if Spitfire takes the titles. You have Alicia attack Masha, kind of blaming her for it, and you have Killer Kelly make the save and the reformation of MK Ultra. Especially if we're going to see the fracturing of the system, I think it just fits perfectly into that storyline.
Exactly. I love that the system, in a weird way, has become this faction that's almost reminiscent of Icarus, and I'm just waiting for them to fly too close to the sun for it to all fall apart. So let's talk about this match. This was a little bit shorter than I thought it was going to be, which was kind of interesting to see, given the fact that even though it was on the countdown to Against All Odds, the Alicia and Masha versus the Hex for for the Knockouts tag titles was like a 15-minute match, which was really good. It was my second favorite match of the whole entire evening, but yeah, I kind of wish it wasn't like this went to 9 8 9 minutes, but I'm happy to see that Spitfire has worked through, their losing streak a little bit, and they're kind of getting back up here. And in a weird way, I don't mind that the Hex lost, because we're still getting them inserted into all the the Knockouts tag team division. And in a weird way, I feel like they can afford the loss and they'll be okay, because Allison and Marty are so good.
Yeah, I feel like this is exactly what we need in the Knockouts tag team division. Like this match specifically, we got to see two actual tag teams, two teams that have been, and could again be tag team title contenders. I think it makes total sense that Spitfire won, because that's been the whole story is of them moving forward. I think we saw it in the way that they wrestled. I like the commentary pointed it out that when they made the tag and Jody Threat was going up to the top rope, that Danny Luna stayed in and protected her, because instead of having the opponents have to like wait there for the setup to happen for the diving attack, they got to try and attack, and Danny protected her partner, and it played into their style too, because they're almost like controlled chaos. So they're just like running around like a mosh pit, but they know what's going on, but it's too much for their opponents to keep up with. So I thought that was great. I really hope that we continue to build both of these teams and the division itself, the competition that we're getting there. I hope we get Decay back at some point. I hope we bring in a couple other tag teams, even if they're green tag teams. Like, I think it's time to start signing some of them and giving them a chance to come in, because then we have tag teams that are there and regular that we get to see, but people like the Hex, Spitfire, if MK Ultra is back, if Decay comes back, a couple other teams, those are the teams that can win over some of the newer tag teams that are just kind of trying to work their way up. And I think that goes for the men's tag division too. But even though this was shorter, I really like what we got out of this. I like what we got to see from both tag teams. And so this was one of my favorite matches of the night.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you. And then from a storytelling perspective, I love the small little detail that commentary said during Spitfire's entrance is like, this was Spitfire's big test, because this was the first time that, Mr. Fredrickson wasn't there with them to kind of mentor them and kind of walk through everything. And so because they got the win on their own and by applying everything that they've been learning for the last month after losing the tag titles, I was like, oh yeah, I was so satisfied with how this match concluded. And I agree with you. This was probably on in the top end of my list of all the matches if I were to rank them. This is definitely really great. So then after this match, like I said, Spitfire picks up the victory over the Hex. We get into, if you did not see it on the social media, thank goodness TNA plays these on the shows too, but we get an after Against All Odds out in the parking lot backstage area promo from the Hardy compound. So this is Matt, Revy Hardy, and Jeff Hardy too, who also made his return at Against All Odds. Very interested to see how we utilize them, but well, that's neither here nor there. Broken Matt Hardy was kind of upset that, not so much that he didn't lose the match, but the fact that Alicia stuck her nose in business and like Rebby got speared through a table. And basically it sounded like Rebby's going to come after Alicia, which I'm kind of here for in a weird way. I was like, this is going to get very interesting. If this leads to like a one-off program between the Hardys and the Edwardses,
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of here with it, which seems that's what we're setting up because Matt wants to get back at Eddie and Alicia, and so does Rebby. So I'm like, if this is what we're doing, I am totally okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, especially, we keep talking about, what's going to happen at Slammiversary. This could, if it happens before Slammiversary, a showdown between those folks could lead to the, outcomes at Slammiversary. Or if we see, like, the system lose their titles, then having a feud with, the Edwards versus the Hardys could be really fun and kind of see where that takes us. But yeah, this is kind of the historic, the stories that we've gotten from TNA over the last few months, especially as we transition from the impact of TNA, is we might see some of these people only for a short time, but we're going to do a really good job at telling stories with the brief time that we have them. When we got Trinity, when Mickey James came back, when Deanna was here, I think what we're getting with Mustafa Ali, they're going to make the most of the time that they have with these folks, and I think it is great for us as fans. But I think it's also really good for the wrestlers because it feels like they're doing quality work, and they're getting to do work that they enjoy and appreciate.
I'm excited. This makes me excited for, planting seeds of, before or after Slammiversary, because we literally have Emergence and Victory Road to get to, and then my gosh almighty, Andrew, I don't know how they're going to top last year's, but I am super excited for Bound for Glory and what the road to Bound for Glory looks like once Slammiversary gets done. I don't know if I'm ready for this. But we move on to a backstage segment. We finally get another episode of our favorite talk show, The Sound Check, with Alan Angels. This time his guest is Kushida. Kushida has been on like a kaiju monster mystery like movie episode because at Against All Odds, he interrupted the match between Sami Callihan and Jonathan Gresham to collect a sample of the ink. And so Alan Angel asks, Kushida, how has that process been going? And so then we get a recap of Kushida getting sick with the ink, and then what happened at Against All Odds. And then we get a pre-taped like iPhone 10 video of him and another person with the octopus in the lab in Japan. Like it was this is the level of camp I aspire to be when it comes to my wrestling. Like they were playing with the whole octopus and everything too. It was still alive. The fact that I don't know if it was TNA's idea or Kushida's idea to do this, I am 100% behind it. And so it was so good. And then Alan Angels is like, bro, this is kind of dumb. What are you doing? And this ends up be like, Kushida's like, you think it's dumb? I'll fight you in the ring next week. So we're getting Alan Angels versus Kushida next week.
Yeah, however we got there, it'll be a fun match.
So
I wouldn't be surprised if we see some involvement in some way or another from, either the ink, just the ink having some more side effects, or Jonathan Gresham actually showing up. I will say I watched Explosion from, technically, I guess it was last week, where Jonathan Gresham had a match. It still bothers me that he's kind of a monster, but he's getting beat up a lot, even when he's winning. I want him to be more powerful than he is, and I think we're underserving what he could be used as. So I'm interested to see what the not even the end game, because I don't think we're close to him being done with this, gimmick, but just the peak of what we're going to do with this.
Like, where is the climax? Where is the big, oh my goodness moment?
Yeah.
And look, wrestling tends to bleed into ideas. Nothing is original anymore in the year of 2024. But if we want to build, I want to see Gresham be built like a monster. Like literally, you just had all the Raw roster just get brutalized this
Yeah,
past Monday Night Raw. I'm not saying you have to go to those levels, but the fact that this faction just made their debut and they ran through all the security and like everybody backstage, and Chad Gable probably is dead at some
yeah,
point now. I was like, oh, that they didn't beat him up. I love the memes that say, "Oh my gosh, Chad Gable got shot." I was just like,
yeah,
Otis did it.
yeah.
No, but Jonathan Gresham should aspire to be. Now, granted, it seems that this Cthulhu-esque character for Jonathan Gresham is leading into more of the cosmic horror side. Be cosmic horror, like literally, you don't have to have this man like doing some blood ritual sacrifice like everyone thinks when it comes to the Cthulhu mythos. But like, what was it like 2 or 3 weeks ago when Santino was calling
Hmm.
Gresham?
Yeah.
And like it was very like horror movie in like a dimly lit part of the arena. The lights were flickering. We were playing spooky music as Santino was calling Jonathan. Like, do that. Just creep me out.
I I want to see kind of a mixture of like the Boogeyman and Great Muta. I
Yes.
think something like that with Jonathan Gresham's style and the style of this gimmick, make it along those lines. You know, I think when it comes to in ring interaction, they're only going about half as far as they should go.
Right. So, funny enough, I can't believe I'm saying this. I actually trust TNA to help Jonathan Gresham get there because TNA does a really good job of letting their wrestlers do these gimmicks and then helping them out to, take it to the next level. Speaking of that, things that necessarily weren't going to be taken to the next level given to people who are participating in this. We get our Chicago Street Fight match next, where we have Frankie Kazarian taking on Ace Steel, part of Brawl Out 2022, I think it was. I'm surprised that nobody did what they did at the pay-per-view and chanted Ace Steel to bite that ass. Like, I gotta say though, I was like, on paper, I was like, Ace Steel is not moving really well. I don't know how this is gonna work out. I gotta say though, he's an old man, but I was like, you know what? This actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. They still kind of did some things, but definitely Frankie carried a lot of this match because Frankie's just that. I actually enjoyed this.
Yeah, this match was a surprisingly good match for a not too violent street fight, and considering that Steel doesn't regularly perform, I was surprised at the condition that he was in and what kind of action we actually got out of it. It was fun. It was exciting. It was much more back and forth than I kind of thought it might be. And ultimately, I thought it was good continuation of the storytelling that we're getting from this whole like feud that's been going on with Kazarian and Joe Hendry.
Well, I mean, and we saw it continue because Frankie beats Ace Steel, puts him in a chicken wing after the match, to have Joe Hendry come in for the save and give a very, very powerful and oh my gosh, I think Frankie Kazarian broke his back, standing ovation. I'm like, that power to hold Frankie up for as long as he did and the momentum of him throwing him to the mat, I'm just like, Joe Hendry is so underrated. Like, let's get this man a title. And he is not just a meme wrestling internet. I know some of y'all got your introduction to Joe Hendry through the meme, but he is actually a phenomenal wrestler. And please go back because Joya is the best thing that has ever happened to professional wrestling, and I'm waiting for a reunion one day.
He's gone too soon.
Gone way too soon. So we go from here. Backstage, we have Mustafa Ali and Campaign Singh. Mustafa Ali wants to start an investigation of who leaked the tape. The idea against all odds was great, but the production truck was getting fired that night because we could not hear. We barely heard the video, and I was so mad. I was just like, "This is good storytelling," but Ali wants to figure out who leaked the tape at Against All Odds. Campaign Singh starts running off ideas, and ultimately next week we're getting a State of the X Division Union address with Ali, which is where I think we're finally pulling the trigger, and God, I hope it's true, of us building towards Speedball versus Ali at Slammiversary. Low key, I'm not going to lie, Andrew. If this is the match we're getting, Speedball once again for the third year in the row is going to be probably my match of TNA for that year because he's been that way for the last 2 years. I don't want
Rightfully so.
WWE to get I don't want WWE to pick up Speedball or AEW. I want. Well, here's the thing. Selfishly, I want TNA to keep Speedball because Speedball is like amazing, and I'm afraid he's not going to be utilized properly in the other promotions. At the same time, though, I don't want to stunt his wings and not allow him to fly. Shout out
I
Mike Bailey, non-binary representation, as I come to learn.
I think with Speedball that the biggest thing in AEW is would fall kind of into this. He would drop down in where they would put him. He'd have phenomenal matches because there's so many people he could face. But I think in any of the bigger promotions, they don't invest enough in some of those high flyers. Now, that being said, you could put him in matches. Like we know he had a phenomenal match with Will Ospreay. Ricochet's floating around out there. Who knows where he's going to end up? Could have a phenomenal match there and everything. But who knows? Maybe Mike Bailey wants to stay with TNA because that also means that they get to show up in, places like GCW and other promotions where, he can kind of go in and have these matches, but also still regularly wrestle for TNA. So, there's the possibility. I think there's a lot of wrestlers that want that, and that's part of the reason why they stay with TNA is they can go and they can do other promotions. So many of the TNA roster I see pop up in all of the other shows, like, World Series Wrestling, or the Most Wanted Wrestling, or whatever it is, that the Mammoths show up a lot. You've got people like Matt Cardona, Steph DeLander, like all these people that are coming from those promotions and coming into TNA. So I wouldn't be surprised if Mike Bailey wants to stay here for a while, especially if they're going to get a TNA run, or an X Division run as the champion. And I think if we're going to see Mustafa Ali drop that title, I think Mike Bailey is a phenomenal person to take it off of him. And that match is just going to be fire.
I hope that's the match we get. I think the funny thing too is, like, in character, I wonder if Ali knows about the option C. Because I would not be surprised if that's the other way that they decide to go about doing this. It's like, I am here to address the union. I am cashing in option C. And then, but I'm like, but we're having elimination matches, so I don't think, or, because maybe we only have those matches, and then Ali gets, cashes in and automatically goes. Regardless, I want Speedball and Ali to have that match at Slammiversary, but
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways they could go. I mean, Ali could cash in option C and say that he wants to cash it in and face the winner of the 6-man match.
Yeah, immediately right after.
Or, immediately after, if he does win at Slammiversary, and that's how that title gets vacated. But, yeah, I just love what Ali has done in TNA. They've done such a great job, and I'm so happy he stayed longer.
Oh, absolutely. And even though he hasn't officially signed a contract, the TNA is investing a lot in him. They have multiple t-shirts with Ali on it already. So I'm like, I got to get me some. But speaking of things that make me happy, Andrew, I believe in love. And so we get PCO and Steph DeLander's first date in the ring. Last week it was the Hardy Compound shenanigans that was the best thing in 2024. This is the best in-ring 2024 segment all year. I don't care. Listen, Andrew, I don't care how stupid this is, because on paper it is stupid. And I'm not afraid to admit it's stupid, but it's my kind of stupid. Like, this was camp. And I'm so mad Will's not here, because this was theatrics, and like, this was the best thing. So we literally got a first date between PCO and Steph DeLander. Literally it's Beauty and the Beast at this point. Steph coming out looking like Elvira was also a really nice touch. But, they have things in common. Like, they both like The Notebook, they love the black wine, all the crazy things. It's like, this was perfect. And honestly, I kind of dug that when First Class interrupted, they made PCO watch after they tied him up. And AJ Francis has solidified himself as my favorite villain of professional wrestling right now, because he put Steph DeLander through the table with the choke slam. I was like, this was everything I wanted, Andrew. I don't know about you, but this was my favorite segment of this whole entire episode.
It was fun. I appreciated where it went, because that was my question, was like, how are we going to pay this off? I love that Steph got involved because she is such an active wrestler and not just a women's wrestler. I mean, she's the deathmatch queen, and I think it could be really fun whether it's, before Slammiversary or leading into Slammiversary. I think we can get a couple of things here. But I think one of the things you can get leading into it could be PCO and Steph versus First Class in a tag team match would be fun. I think either having that Slammiversary or have that match lead to eventually PCO challenging AJ Francis for the digital media title in some kind of crazy match would be pretty fun too. Hell, give us the tag team match between now and Slammiversary. If PCO and Steph win, PCO gets a title shot and he gets to pick the stipulation.
Yes. See, this is how you have me intrigued. And Slammiversary is where everything comes out of the woodwork. They throw all the matches types out at Slammiversary and Bound for Glory. So I'm here for this. I love this. This was camp. It was fantastic. And surprisingly, it didn't overstay its welcome. Like, I was like, you know what? This was a long segment, but I didn't mind it. Okay. So after this, we get our squash match of the evening. Ash by Elegance takes on Heather Reckless, who we are familiar with from ROH, matches there as well. I mean, this was a squash match. This allowed Ash to get another win. What I love, though, is that Ash is taking it a step further because she tries to pull a Juggernaut driver onto Heather Reckless, which then prompts Jordan Grace to come out. Jordan gets the upper hand a little bit, but then Ash fights back, gives her the finger eye poke of doom, and then blinds her and allows her to beat her up. This has to be the Slammiversary match that we're building to. Ash versus Jordan, and I'm kind of here for it.
Yeah, I mean, take note, Ring of Honor. This is how you do squashes. You have one in the night, and you have it mean something. This, like you said, was a great chance for Ash to pick up a victory. We got to see an interaction between Ash and Jordan, and it protected them both because, Ash looked like the heel. Ash stood tall at the end of the match, but not in a way that made the champion look weak because we call him the consigliere, but the concierge got involved, which enabled, Ash to get an attack from behind, the eye poke from the distraction, and then hit her with the title. So, I think this is totally the build to Slammiversary for this. Yeah, I thought this match is exactly what it was supposed to do.
Exactly. And it seems this is the fourth road that we're getting to Slammiversary because we're going to put this squash match with Jordan's promo right afterwards where she's done dealing with Ash by Elegance's game. So she's going to talk to Santino and she's going to deal with Ash by Elegance once and for all. So I'm like, fourth match for Slammiversary probably set. We literally probably have 4 matches already set without the placards, Andrew. Like, how is it that we have like half the card already ready to go, whereas other companies can't even give us like other matches until the week?
I already have my whole prediction for the whole card. Not my prediction of who's necessarily winning, but I have my ideas of like what the card for Slammiversary is going to be.
We'll talk about it afterwards because I want to poke your brain to see if yours matches mine. But Jordan's done playing Ash's games, and so this is probably the Slammiversary match for the Knockouts title, which I'm here for. All right, so then we get into probably my low point of the evening, only because, like, all right, I guess we have, JDC, Johnny Dango Curtis taking on the Hollywood hunk Ryan Nemeth in a very short match. This match doesn't even go for like 3 minutes, and then in a blink of an eye, it's over. Like, okay, like damn, Ryan, you can't catch a break.
It's funny, when I saw Ryan Nemeth come out, I was like, oh, he'd be a good fit for the digital media division too. I actually thought this was exactly what it needed to be. I thought this was a good call on the outcome of the match. Dango needed to win with shenanigans. He needed to pick up the victory because we need to continue this story of like, is he going to get to be a part of the system? They made it make sense because, he did win through shenanigans, so then there was a reason why it was like so quick. The match itself I thought was a good match, but it was nothing special. And clearly the point of this match was what happened afterwards with the system coming out and like it showing Eddie Edwards and Brian Myers support
Dango.
JDC.
Yeah.
And then obviously Nick coming out and saving his brother kind of continues this whole process. So I think storytelling wise, it played the part that it needed to play. It didn't try to be more than it was. So it has me intrigued to see where we're going.
Right. So I didn't necessarily hate the outcome because you are right, with Nick coming out to save Ryan to continue the story that the Nemeths have an issue with the system, especially Brian and Edwards. JDC is being supported by these two, and I'm interested to see. I wonder if JDC ends up being the reason they lose those tag titles. Would be kind of crazy, but after this, we get the bumpers for next week, which is actually looking pretty stacked. If I gotta say, because we're getting a triple threat tag team match with ABC, the Rascals, and Jake and Diener, which I guess they're still a team now. I guess after everything has kind of happened, but you know what? I'm not gonna complain. We get Jake on television. And honestly, if we want to put Diener and Jake in the tag division, I'm not going to complain either because that just means more men's tag teams to be, a thing. On top of that, we're getting two qualifying matches. We are having Steve Macklin take on. Why am I blanking on?
Death Machine, Sammy Callahan.
That match is going to be very interesting. And then Nick Nemeth is facing. Who's he facing? My brain's already frying.
Oh my goodness, I don't remember either.
I was
I
just
don't
like,
know,
what?
but he's going to win. So
yeah, Nick is going to win. I think Smacklin's going to win.
yeah.
Well, actually, that one's hard to call because it's 50-50, but I think Macklin should win because Macklin has beef with Moose from, when he was champion. So I was like, let the ghosts of Moose's past. And then they didn't show it on here, but on social media, we got an exclusive that the other qualifying match, and this one's going bang, is Frankie Kazarian and Mike Santana. I'm like, listen, just for those three matches alone, I'm like, this card is kind of stacked for next week. I'm kind of excited. This is going to be fun. Which then leads us into our main event. I don't know why I'm surprised that Eric Young and Josh Alexander put on a good match. Like, I shouldn't be surprised at this point, but in our main event, we had a Road to Slammiversary qualifier. This is the first one. Winner goes on to Slammiversary to face Moose in the 6-way elimination match. Eric Young versus Josh Alexander. They had a miscommunication and against all odds, which surprisingly allowed I'm not going to lie, I picked them to win. I did not pick ABC to beat them. And the fact that Josh was the one who got pinned in that match was like, oh, that's crazy. But now it makes sense. I'm like, well, Josh gets pinned, so he's probably going to win this match anyways. But this was a fight match. I was just like, they're just pulling out moves. They're hitting each other hard. Like, Josh, you just came back from injury. Don't hurt yourself. Like, this was probably one of my favorite matches of the evening aside from Spitfire and Hex. But like, yeah, this was definitely a main event match. This was great. Josh wins. He's moving on to Slammiversary. But I just, I'm not going to lie. I love Josh, but I was like, I kind of want to see one more run from Eric now. Like, this is the story we've been telling in 2024. I'm like, I kind of want to see one more run.
I mean, I appreciated it. It was a great back and forth match. It was a really solid match, as you would expect from the two of these performers. They did a great job. I wasn't surprised that Alexander won, especially setting up this big match at Slammiversary. And I feel like Eric Young really is living up to the story that he's been telling because he's the biggest supporter of TNA. And I think he's at the point where he's like, I don't need another title run. I've been in this company for so long. I've held these titles. I've done all these great things. I want to be the one that accentuates and elevates the other performers around me. And that's what he's consistently been doing. You look at, he fought through Kazarian to get a shot at the title. He lost his title shot against Moose, which was his way of putting Moose over as a champion. He's doing this with Eric Young. He's doing this with ABC. He's doing all of these things where he's going out there and still looking like a phenomenal performer while elevating the people he's in there with. And that's great. That's what I want to see from these veterans, especially the people who are closer to the end of their careers. I want to see that, and for all of the challenges and stuff that, we've faced with folks like Kazarian and his new King of TNA and all that stuff. I think he's doing a lot of the same stuff. And
he's putting over Joe Hendry so much right now.
And that's what I want to see from veterans. And, that's the thing that I have issue with some other veterans who still want to be the star. Eric Young is such a good team player as part of the promotion. And I feel like even when he finally retires from in ring activity, he's going to continue on being a part of, production, being a backstage personality, whatever it's going to be. And he's going to continue to just share that wealth of knowledge that he has. And I feel like a part of that is because when he was coming up, he had people around him who would do that. He got to work with so many people. And so I give him a lot of credit for that. And yeah, this match was just phenomenal. And I didn't expect it to be any less than it was because they're such solid performers. So I'm excited for Josh in this big match. And I'm just happy to see what we're getting from TNA. We started off with a good way to start it with that promo from the system, and we ended it going really well into what's coming.
Right. And in a weird way, Andrew, even though Slammiversary is like the third Big Four pay-per-view for TNA of the year, honestly, this road to Slammiversary is also kind of telling me what the rest of 2024 for TNA is going to look like. And, that's not even counting, like, the people who are injured. So, like, when Kylan King comes back, like, where are we going to put her? Like, I'm excited when she comes back. When Hammerstone's cleared, like, what direction are we going to go with him? And I still want that match between him and Jake something because he got injured, that we didn't get at Under Siege. But regardless, and, PCO is showing that, you could still kill it no matter how old you get. And I love PCO. He's great. And that's not even thinking of like, because Slammiversary is also the time where they announce, be like, hey, these are new people showing up in the cup. I'm excited to see. I need some people to start popping in and be like, if the rumors are true, I don't know if she'll come back or not, but like, I would love Mickey James to just come back and just start running through, like having matches in the women's division. Like, I don't care. Her and Trinity had a really fun match for the title. Like, there's so many. And I think the cool thing with TNA is that for the most part, they have a good relationship when people are like, hey, so my stint is done, but hey, the door is still open for them to come back and whatnot. So this was a fun main event. The road to Slammiversary, we literally have pretty much 4 matches announced for Slammiversary at this point without the placards. Gets me super excited. So let's go into our final empanada ratings of the episode. Andrew, I'm going to have you go first this time around. So what did you give this week's episode of TNA Wrestling?
I give it an 8 out of 10. I thought, overall it was a really solid show, and it's the start of some really exciting stuff. Like, the road to Slammiversary is being paved very well right now, and it gives me high hope leading into what I feel like is one of their, even though it's the third, I feel like it's one of their two biggest, nights for TNA. And I feel like they're doing a really good job of laying the groundwork for what we're going to get and what we're seeing. It's not only being laid well, but they're making exciting choices. And this it just had me so excited for not only what I was seeing in the moment, but what is coming up. And I feel like each step is just going to get more exciting.
Oh, absolutely. And I agree with you. I give this a solid 8 out of 10. Again, TNA. So from beginning to end, I will say TNA is probably the best episode so far this week. Though I still have a Collision and a SmackDown to get through in order to make that assumption. I'm biased because Raw, me and Minnie went crazy. JVO gave us a disapproval when we told him this, but we gave Raw a 10 out of 10 this week. Biased because of what happened in the last 5 minutes, but honestly, Raw was a good show. But even still, I think this episode of this week's TNA is probably above that, even though it's a lesser score of 8 out of 10. It's just consistently well-paced, well-planned out. I didn't feel like anything felt out of place or wasted my time. Like, solid work, TNA, and the road to Slammiversary has me excited. Well, me and Andrew got to get up on out of here, so thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Takedown Troop Review. Next week, we will finally be back with our full trio, which makes me super excited. I love working with Andrew one-on-one. I love working with Will one-on-one, but it's not the same until all 3 of us come back together. And I'm super excited that now we can all be together to experience the road to Slammiversary together, which is super important for me because this is the next big tentpole for TNA. And the fact that we'll all be together to witness the road to Slammiversary makes me super excited. But that is going to be it for us here. From me and Andrew, Will, and the rest of the BC Wrestle Boys, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay Bi-Conic, and more importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. We will see you next week for another Takedown Troop review. But until then, adios, sayonara, and Billy Stark's outro. Bleh.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another Vibe Tribe production. What's gonna happen next time? Well, you're gonna have to tune in to find out. But until then, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, and as always, make sure that you keep the good times rolling. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.